Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to my talk. I am Eleftheria, and as you can probably understand by name, I'm from Greece. I'm from Thessaloniki. And I guess that most of you are also from Greece. That's pretty cool, because I don't have to fake an accent. And once again, thank you very much for coming to my talk. We will mostly talk about UX, UI, and a little bit of DX. If you are not familiar with these terms, don't worry. We are going to speak a lot about them, so I'm sure you will understand them. And usually I like to move around a lot, but they told me due to lights I can't, so I will be here. You can find me on my social media if you have any questions. Of course, I will be here until 6, 7 o'clock, but if you're a bit shy, feel free to find me on X, on Instagram, or whatever it's easier for you. All right, let's get started. We are going to see a few examples about UX and UI. Then we are going to analyze UX, UI, and DX. Again, don't worry if you don't know these terms. And then we will continue with the 10 usability heuristics. We will see some do's and don'ts about UX, UI, and DX. Let's get started with the examples. The first ones are a few general. So, who said washing your hands is an easy task? It's not always easy. Who said picking a floor on the elevator is an easy task? And as I was checking for examples, I found a lot of UX images with elevators. Again, we have some issues. How about this? No comment here. How about this? And maybe it's a little bit more familiar to you. How easy or hard should it be to set or reset a password? Okay, but now let's really go to UX, UI, and DX. UX is user experience, UI is user interface, and DX is developer's experience. As I mentioned, we will focus a little bit more on the first two terms and a little bit less on the third term. What we are going to do different in this presentation than what you usually see online is that we are going to demystify these two terms from two different perspectives, from the perspective of the user and the perspective of the developer. Because in most cases, we are both users and developers. Let's start with the perspective of the user, because I think it's a little bit easier to understand it. So the user interface is what a user interacts with a product, what taps on or clicks on, and the whole experience is localized in a device. Maybe you have a mobile, maybe you have a laptop, a PC, or again, whatever. The user experience is a little bit different, is how a user interacts with a product and how they feel when they use a product. And this time, the whole experience is localized in their physical body. So you can see if they are smiling, they're probably happy with the product, but if they have a frustrated face, they probably dislike what they are doing at that particular moment. Now, from the developer's perspective, things can be a little bit more complicated. So I would like to start with an analogy. From very far away, you can see the iceberg, but it's not only that. It's the icy weather, it's a big ice that holds everything together. And this is exactly UI and UX from the developer's perspective. So UI is what you can see and interact with, but UX is what you can see alongside with what you can't see and what holds everything together. So we talked a little bit about UI and we talked a little bit about UX, but how about DX? DX is the developer's experience, so it's a little bit similar to the user's experience, but this time it's more focused to the developers. And when we say DX, we mean how developers mainly, or technical people, interact with technical products. And when we are saying interacting, this can have two meanings. It can be interacting like building a product that is for developers or using a product that you use as a developer. For example, we have AWS, someone built that, but you as a developer are using those services. All right, let's continue with some more examples, and this time it's a mix of UI, UX, and DX. Can someone notice here the error? You can raise your hand if you want. Or how we could improve that, because it's not an exactly error. If you see that red thing is that my conversation can load, but what I see is that alphanumerical thing, which doesn't really help because I have a lot of conversation and I don't know which conversation isn't loading. So if I could have something like your conversation with this name isn't working or isn't loading, it would be much better. And actually, if you use ChatGPT, you may notice more errors. I have here only this, but there are actually more things that could have been better. We also have this, which is a UI error, and I think it's pretty obvious what the thing is. We are talking about McAfee, and the UI is pretty bad. We also have here another small example. Can you notice here what's wrong? It's something that lately is wrong. Before, like a few months ago, it wasn't an error. Okay, if you check the social media icons, Twitter is not Twitter these days, it's X. I also called it Twitter, but if we want to be a little bit more professional, we should change that icon. And I was doing some research about other stuff, and I was checking a lot of websites, and I noticed that a lot of companies still haven't changed their social media icons. But as I said, we want to be professional here. We want to have the best products that we can have, so even small details count. We also have here a small mistake. You need to read that in order to understand the mistake. I will give you 30 seconds or so. It says cashback is only eligible for new user plus purchasing his first gig. It's not his, it's not here. But this time we have other pronouns, and we should be a little bit more careful with what we are using. Okay, we also have an example here with Google Drive and its services. So this particular one is from the presentations. So I try to upload an image or a video, because it doesn't clearly mention what I tried to upload, which was invalid. I mean, was it invalid or unsupported? I'm not sure, because it doesn't clarify. And we are talking about Google. Shouldn't things be a little bit more easier? And shouldn't I have a workaround? I really don't know if I try to upload an image or a video, or what is supported and what is not supported. I would like to have an answer here. We also have some other social media things here that, again, this time they don't work at all. It was supposed to be like, I think, Twitter and Facebook and the up button. Nope. We also have, we also have here another example. This is Mastodon, and this time I'm logged in with my company's account, Crab Nebula. Again, I tried to upload something. I tried to upload a video, and I got one error. It was 413. What is 413? And as a user, am I supposed to know what is 413? And what do I do after I get that error? I never learned. Okay, and we have one last example. If you are from Greece, you know Zenith. Zenith is a Greek provider for power, electricity, and this kind of stuff. I hope that no one here is working in Zenith, but if you are, you can check this example and then go back to your boss, because there were some weird stuff here as well. I was trying to give my information, and then there was an error. They never told me what the error was, And when I clicked again, it said server error, but again, I didn't have any other information about what I was supposed to do. Anyway, I also asked around, mainly on X, what do people think about UX, UI, and DX, and if they can give me some examples about what they feel is wrong and we could improve. A lot of people mentioned LinkedIn. Yeah, but also some people mentioned Heroku's DX and a few other examples. All right, now let's see what does a UX designer team do. They do a bunch of different things, and UX is quite new as a discipline, so something that was like 5 years ago, maybe it's not today, and maybe it will not be in 5 years. I have here this pyramid, and I will start reading from bottom to top. We have user research and analysis, content strategy, information architecture, interaction design, and visual design. The UX team will mainly focus on the 3 bottom layers. They will gather all the information and all the details. They will conduct interviews. They will speak with users, which is really, really, really important. And when they have everything, then they will continue with passing those information to the UI team. Now, I know that a lot of companies, not only in Greece, but in general, they don't have a dedicated UX team or a UI team. But that's why you, as a developer, should care about those stuff. And hopefully, with this presentation, you will learn quite a few stuff, and you will be a better asset for your company. And of course, you will be able to create better products. And it's products that maybe are already public. Maybe you will be able to improve them, or it's about products that you want to publish. Now, what does a UI designer team do? We have here the same pyramid, but as I mentioned earlier, this time the UI team will focus on the top 2 layers, so interaction design and the visual design, and they will make sure that the product from their perspective is ready. But I would also like to make a small parenthesis here that UI, it's not only how it looks. A lot of people, when we are talking about the user interface, they will think that it's colors, images, maybe buttons, and maybe typography, but it's not really, it's not only that. UI can be audible. We speak to a machine, and this machine will give us answer. This is UI. It's a different kind of UI, but it is UI. And it's not only that, it can also be textual. This is probably something that all of you have used. This time we are not focusing on colors, we are not focusing on typography, we're not focusing on buttons. There are not even buttons, there are not images, there is nothing of that. It's only text. But this is UI too. All right, let's continue. What does a DX team do? The DX team is responsible for a few different things, like writing technical documentation. I would say that this is the first thing that a DX team should do. And everything that has to do with writing and documentation, they should be able to do it. And it's not only that, it's also selecting developer tools. So if your company wants to build something new for the very first time, they should go to their DX team and ask them to do their research. Again, I get it that not every team and not every company has a dedicated department for DX, but you as a developer could probably help in this direction if you know this kind of stuff. And defining workflows. Now, I have here a small example from Uber that I find it quite interesting, and that's why I would like to mention it here, that the DX team, it's not only developers, but they can be a bunch of different people, like educators and technical writers as well. Let's change gears a little bit and let's continue with our examples. We will go to the 10 usability heuristics. These heuristics, you can think about them as 10 rules that will make your product better, more satisfactory, because this is a key word here, the satisfaction. And these 10 rules, they were manifested by Jacob Nielsen and Don Norman in 1995. So it's not my things, but if you apply these 10 rules, I can guarantee that your products will be better. Let's start with the first rule. It's visibility of system status. Your users want to see things, and they want to see the important things. Imagine taking out your phone, and as the screen lights up, you can see an image, you can see the date, you can see the notifications, you can see the signal, you can see the time, you can see a lot of different things. Now imagine someone took all of those things from you. You still have your phone, but as you light the screen, you don't see any of those things. How would you feel? I guess kind of naked, right? The same thing goes with your product, with your system, with your app, with your service. The user wants to see the important things. Rule number 2, match between the system and the real world. So people presume how products will work based on the experience that they already have. If they know that something works in that particular way, don't try to change that. We want this, this connection between the real world and the things that they already know. The third rule is user control and freedom. Even if you have like a great product, a great service, the users will make some mistakes, and we will talk about mistakes a little bit later too. But they will do some things that probably they shouldn't do. Maybe they don't care a lot, maybe they have their mind somewhere else, but they continue playing with your product. That's why you want to have an emergency exit button. As I said, this can be an exit button, it can be a cancel, it can be a go back, something like that, but you always want to provide that. Don't just forget it, and don't just think that your users will always go ahead and move on in the procedures that they are supposed to do. Sometimes they want to go back, sometimes they want to see something again, sometimes they will make mistakes. We have rule number 4, which is consistency and standards, and I have 2 favorite rules, so this is the first favorite rule of mine about consistency and standards. So we've mentioned earlier, if you know something that works in a particular way, don't try to change that. For example, we have copy-paste. It works everywhere in the same way, and there is a reason for that. Don't try to change it. If, for example, in your application you have a delete action, use always the same word. Always delete, not erase, not cancel, or not something else. If you have the same action for delete, let's say an icon, a bin, use always the same bin. If you have a green color for a good action, use always that same green color, and don't change to another shade of green. These are simple things, but trust me, I have seen it multiple times, so that's why I think it's quite important to mention them. We also have error prevention. So our users, even if we have the perfect product, they will make some errors. And we have 2 different kinds of errors. We have the sleeps and we have the mistakes. So when it's the sleeps, this is quite easier because, as we said in a previous rule, we will have the exit button, the cancel, something like that. So it's okay, our users will make some slips, but not a big deal. On the other hand, when our users are making mistakes, that's a problem because it means that they didn't understand something in our product. And that's not their fault, that's our fault. As developers, we should go back. This is a little bit more difficult to track those mistakes, but we should go back with our team and discuss why we have these mistakes and how we can solve those kind of things. We have recognition rather than recall, and this is about memory. You always want to have recognition. Recognition is when you see something and you can easily understand it and remember it and know what to do with it. But when you have recall, this is when you have to go back in your memory chunks to try to remember something. So for example, when we have names or dates or some details that we can't remember, this is recall. And this is very important. For example, when we have a search feature in our product, give your users some hints about what they may want to search or what you already have in your services. For example, you could give them a drop-down list. You could give them some images in order to pick. And this is an example that I have here from Coursera. It's a little bit old, so I'm not sure if it has changed it. But this is something that I found a good example. You have images, you have categories, and the user can select quite easily what they want to do. Seventh rule, it's flexibility and efficiency of use. Every user has a different skill set. You most likely will have the first-time users and the power users. So the power users are people that are really well known with your product. They know how to use it. They want to do things fast. Maybe they want to connect it with other products and other services. But the first-time users are people that maybe they need more guidance. Maybe they need more details. And you have also the people in between these two categories. You should provide something for everyone. Make things fast and accurate for the category of the people that know good your product, but also make things simple and provide details for the people that are using your product for the very first time. We also have aesthetic and minimal design, and this is the second favorite rule of mine. Unless you are working in a design company or in an animation company, if it's not that your case, then I would really strongly suggest to keep it simple. Maybe you have a website, amazing, that's really cool, we want that, but please don't have a ton of weird animations or a ton of different font sizes and typography and all this kind of stuff. People will usually go to your website, they will scan your website very, very fast. I think that it was a survey that said like 2 or 3 seconds that people will spend in your website. And if in these 2 or 3 seconds they like what they see, they will continue. But if I see in your website that you have like a weird typography that I can't even read, then I will probably just click on another tab and I will continue reading something else. Maybe you have an amazing product, but I can't see it because it's hiding, because these weird animations and things like that. So if I have to give you like one tip here, it would be to keep it simple. You don't need fancy stuff in most of the cases. And the 9th rule is help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. As we mentioned earlier, our users are going to make mistakes. We already provided some solutions, but we could do better. Recognize that error, then diagnose it, and recover from it. Always offer a solution. Like I mentioned to an example that we saw earlier with Google Drive, that I tried to upload it some images or videos, and it didn't give me a solution. It could say that, okay, for images, I can accept this. For videos, I can accept this. If there is a limitation in megabyte or whatever, I can have until this. The more details that you can provide to your users, the better it's going to be. And the 10th rule is help and documentation. Yes, you should try to provide simple things to your users, and you should try to have the best product possible, but there are some cases that also documentation is a really good idea. And you don't need something very technical. It can be something simple. For example, Trello, in my opinion, is doing a pretty good job. Keep it simple, keep it small, and it will probably work for the majority of people. All right, continuing with our next section, which is the do's and don'ts of UX. This will be pretty fast. Don't assume you know what your users want. Never. You have to go to your users and you have to ask your users, and not only that, but you have to observe your users. And this is what Don Norman did, and this is why he's the pioneer of of UX. Sometimes people ask me, what if I want to test my product, but I don't have users, or even I don't have a product right now, but I want to test it. And I don't have money to find users, because if you have money, the solution is a little bit easier. There are many online services that you can say, hey, I want users from Greece, from this age, from this gender, and they will provide online some users. So this is quite easy. But what happens if you don't have money, but you have a cool idea? Then you can go to the place that you think your product is going to be used. For example, if I was creating an application about airplanes or airports, I could go to an airport and find people there and ask them questions as they are trying to catch up their flights. But yeah, I could do that. If you work in a big company, don't ask your colleagues about the products that you all build together, because your team members will be biased, so they will not give you the correct answers. But go to other departments. You can go maybe to the HR department or to the logistic departments and ask a question for the product that you and your team is trying to build. And if you work at a startup company, so you don't have HR, you don't have other departments, you could go to your friends. Yes, your friends maybe also be a little bit biased, but if you're good and true friends, they will give you a clear answer. And worst case scenario, you don't have like very good friends and you think that they will be biased as well. I have one last final solution for you. Go to your mother-in-law, go to your ex-boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and ask them, is my product good? Trust me, they will want to give you the hard truth. And if there is something wrong, they are going to say it. Okay, don't follow the hippo at the room, and the hippo stands for the highest paid person's opinion. Usually it's your boss. So if your boss has an opinion and you have a different opinion, just be clear about it and don't be afraid to say your opinion. Don't prototype too soon and don't code too soon, even if you plan to test it. Do focus on what people do rather than what they say, and that's why I mentioned earlier about observing people. And if you have the chance to observe people, how they're using your product, really do prefer that. I get it that it's easier, for example, to have online interviews and online user testing. But if you have the chance to really ask the same kind of people to, okay, come to my office, we will have a coffee, and then you can test my product, this is much, much better. Don't overlook existing insights from customer care representatives. So if your company have a support system or something similar, do take the time and check what people are asking in their support. Even if it's not your job, take the time to go and scan. I don't know if it's an online system or whatever, just check the documentation or whatever your company is using and really see what people are asking, because there is the place that you will find the UX errors or hiccups. And do collaborate. You're never alone, either as a developer or as a UXer or as a UI designer. You always have people around you. And do find someone qualified to do your research or become one yourself. And I hope that with this presentation, I'm helping you a little bit more with this direction. And we have two more sections, so bear with me. The do's and don'ts of DX. This is a bit shorter. So DX is all about documentation and writing down everything. So it's much easier for everyone, not only in the people in your company that are developers, but also for the people that are going to use your product, your technical product. They should be able to find everything in the documentation. You shouldn't make public a product if you don't have a documentation. You can update the documentation, but you can't have a product without a documentation or a guide or something like that. Reduce ramp-up time, and ramp-up time is the time that it takes for a new developer to build and develop something. I know that some companies are very, very good in this section, because when they are about to hire a developer, they will give them some easier tasks so they can start developing things. But there are other companies that it takes ages, because first they need to do some crazy courses, then they need to sit down with other developers and have multiple meetings. They will continue doing that meetings, and after like 3 months they will start developing. We certainly don't want that. And don't overlook soft skills like empathy. In my personal opinion, you can be a good programmer if you don't have empathy, but there are certain roles like the DX role that you can't be good in it if you don't have empathy or other soft skills. And this is again quite crucial, because in DX you're talking to other people, you're talking to other developers, so you need to have empathy. You need to understand how they feel or what they want when they are using your product. And you can work on empathy. So if you feel that right now you don't have empathy, it's a skill that you can work on. I found a quote from Jonathan Carter that I really liked, and I thought to have it here. It says, "Great DX shortens the distance between intention and reality." Okay, last section, the good and the bad of UI. You will see 2 columns, the good one and the bad one, and you can pick your side. So, this is the designer's / the developer's mindset. The good one listens to everyone from decision makers, team members, and stakeholders, whereas the bad one judges and suggests solutions all the time. You can pick your side. Now, the good one questions the status quo and digs deep to find out real problems and real needs, whereas the bad one follows the rule, we've always done it that way, and tries to fix symptoms. I think that especially the part of we've always done it that way is something that we listen quite often. Now, the good one loves to be wrong and seeks feedback, whereas the bad one loves to be always right and seeks praise. The good one leads, and the bad one follows. So that was it. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them. We have some time. Thank you very much.